تقرير مجد الكيلاني. Now we welcome our guest, Mike Gape's veteran MP in Ilford South, which is actually for our viewers abroad, it is in east of London, not exactly bordering Essex, is it?
Yes, my postal address is Essex.
So you're an Essex man.
Greater London and Essex, yes.
You are both
Yes.
a London and Essex man.
Yes.
Very good. Excellent. Actually, veteran. When is it the second or third parliament we use the word veteran for an MP?
I have no idea. Somebody said I was vintage once, which I think is a
I think I'm older than you, so if you're vintage, I'm ancient.
I've been an MP for 25 years.
Well, this is definitely veteran. Definitely veteran. As we were actually talking here on the gas prices and on the oil prices, who to blame? I mean, you were actually, when you were in, when Labour was in office there, and when the chairman of Foreign Select Committee, it was the Climate Change Act that was passed. It was, they say here, for example, almost over £100 is to subsidize green energy, wind power, because it doesn't make money and so on. Are they actually right to blame the government policy?
No. British Gas have announced a 12.5% increase, which is excessive. And most of the facts are that the levy is not the main cause. There are lots of other issues here. But the fact is that oil and gas prices have fallen in recent years.
It's the third, yes.
And we're now paying around $50 a barrel for oil. And yet, despite that, the gas companies is putting up prices.
Okay, because again, our viewers come from an area where this issue of private and public is really big thing. If the government decide to cap bills, when they use the grace period to push them up, so when they capped at a high price?
Well, the Conservatives in their election manifesto promised to bring in a cap, but since the election, they aren't going to. They've gone back on it, even though the policy was what Labour was proposing in 2015, and there would be a majority in Parliament for a cap. But the government are not prepared to bring it in now, which is a bit strange.
You call the premise Johannes Theresa the appeaser. Is she appeasing the gas, the private companies?
Well, she may be appeasing lots of people at the moment because she's in a very, very weak position.
Wow, she's on the holiday.
So no disasters at the moment. She's on holiday.
The other one is actually Prince Philip, semi-retiring. And you see this cartoon?
Yes.
So he's showing half, because he'll still be the Queen's consort in sort of missions, but in his own, it's still sort of, it's a 22,000 engagement.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. 670.
Yeah, I've met him 3 or 4 times at different occasions, and he's always got a few words, sometimes very few, but for whoever.
Anything? What did he say to you?
Oh, he just said, "How long have you been in Parliament?" That was the first time I met him, and that was in Buckingham Palace, where a group of MPs were invited in. And we were going down the line, he was standing still and we were moving along. And then secondly, I met him at the Cumberland Lodge, where there was a Commonwealth conference, which is in the grounds of Windsor. And it was we were invited, the participants in the conference were invited to the church service. And the royal family were in the church, and we were also in the
He probably won't say any of his quips. The church.
No. The Queen was far more indiscreet than he was.
Really?
But I'm not revealing.
Of course you can't say that. But even left-wing Republican papers are saluting. It doesn't matter what your view is on the monarchy.
The point is the royals, the Queen and Prince Philip are an institution. I was born in 1952. I'm 65 this year. I have known no other monarch than the one we have now in my life, my whole life.
Yeah.
And that is remarkable.
But it's the same thing. And again, he came from a generation where you don't make a fuss, World War II generation, like my mother. I was born during the war. So, what do you think of the new royals and the young ones? Are they a bit of a snowflake generation?
I think it's very hard for them, particularly the young, the ones at the moment when it's 20th anniversary of the death of their mother. Particularly difficult time, particularly because the television have decided to rehash an old film that was broadcast in the United States.
And she wasn't very wise either.
And, well, she wasn't. This wasn't an interview for broadcast. This was a private discussion,
one, yeah.
And an American television channel broadcast it. And frankly, I don't think we learn anything more from this. But of course, because it's the 20th anniversary, inevitably there is for the Americans, they remember when Kennedy was assassinated. Yes. I remember where I was exactly when I heard that Princess Diana had died in the car crash.
Exactly the same thing, yeah.
You know, and so everyone will know that.
The newspaper ruined my holiday. I was in the Edinburgh Festival. Good time to take a break here. Take a break and come back to you. نذهب استراحة قصيرة. And now back to our guest. Welcome back, Mike. I mean, the silly season is back. The shark, I'm not quite sure if this Photoshop or not. But I don't know. I haven't seen many silly seasons there by MPs. We're still early in the season.
That's true.
Watch out.
Yeah.
What you do? What do you think of this hilarious story about the priests walking?
Yeah, it's a fantastic story because these were young trainee priests, and they just went after they'd been at this event where they went to celebrate, where they got some certificates, awards, and the barman said to them, "Go out of here! I'm not." They thought they were in fancy dress. It was some kind of wedding, sort of a stag night party or something. But the manager, to be fair, when he discovered, he gave them all free drinks.
He saw the lights.
He's the manager. So this wasn't a pub policy, and I'm sure the pub have apologised profusely. It's a great story.
If he was an Irish barman, he'd be excommunicated.
It's a great story.
A great story. And the joke would be a priest and a priest and a priest walk into a bar, and the barman says, "Is this a joke?"
Yes, that's right.
But here's another, actually, one of the other stories we were talking about is the children playing games back in the streets.
Yes.
Now, what always sort of, sometimes I wonder, it's obvious, children playing in the streets is better than sitting behind the computer and so on, your mom calls you. But why do you need £2 million academic research to tell you the obvious?
Sometimes because people don't take any notice of when people raise things. But if you've got some kind of official academic label on it and a report, then it can get processed during the
yes.
Otherwise they say, "Oh, that's just anecdotal. We haven't got any evidence." And so sometimes, unfortunately, common sense doesn't come through until you've actually got it labelled officially.
Absolutely. Yes. You actually been member of Foreign Select Committee. And also you reflect something happening in Britain. You live in a colourful, multicultural or multi-ethnic constituency. You have Jews and Muslims. So they are traditional.
Christians and Hindus and Sikhs and Buddhists.
So you have traditional families. Do they still play in the street? Have this traditional?
No, because of the number of motor cars. And parents are concerned about the safety of their children.
Yeah.
And so often children also in the technology, they spend their time on computer games and so on. And so there is a problem, a growing problem of obesity amongst young people. And
because they don't play in the streets.
Because they don't go climbing trees or like what I used to do. But I used to play marbles in the street. I used to do flicking of cards. But there were only about 6 cars in our road, and we used to do cycle races around the road because there was no traffic. But of course, that's all changed, and certainly my own children. We're going back to 20 years. We would never let them go out on the streets just to play. They could go to the park or they could go to a friend's house, but we were always a little bit concerned because of the amount of traffic.
But it's actually shame real. That's why we're nostalgic about our generation, or
Sure.
mine. I'm a bit older, actually.
yeah.
I remember the King even. That's why I say goodbye to Prince Philip. Now, speaking of the summer, actually, yeah, speaking of summer holiday, you have street parties in constituency. We do have
I've been at 3 street parties.
because that's good community.
In the last few weeks. We had in June there was a street party to commemorate the murder of our colleague Joe Cox, the MP, and there were street parties held all over the country.
That's right, yeah.
And then I've been at an event, a street party in my constituency last weekend.
It's a great British tradition, isn't it?
And and it's great because it brings people in modern world, you often don't know your neighbours, but this is a way, you get to know the people who live near you.
It's old summer stories. Speaking of summer stories, the Chancellor Angela Merkel, using the same shirt, the same baseball cap, the same trousers since 2013. Is it German thrift?
No, but that's common sense. If you've got a comfortable shirt that you use when you wear casually, why throw it away? You only need to wash it and then it's clean and you can carry on wearing it.
Well, I wish my wife would read that. but that's good. Because last week we were talking about the Prime Minister's sense of dress, and it was an MEP. And she said she's not worried about the dress, she's worried about the idea that might come into her head in this holiday.
Well, yes, because if you're a Conservative MP, she called an election after going on a walking holiday, and that ended in a disaster. So I guess
I think Labour wished she would call another election, would you?
Yeah, but she's not going to. She might, she might be forced out by it, and her successor might call an election, but she's not going to fight another election.
Let's actually wait for the last sort of party conference and see what will happen. The auto cue is in the wrong place. There's actually a story missing from the auto cue. Yeah, the bus and the burqa. No, I can read it. I can read it from here. Actually, I read it from the paper. Hold. I just couldn't find the story. Oh, it's not actually. It's not even here. Goodness me, goodness gracious me! It's actually because I wrote some good, really. وختاما قصة عاملة مثيرة للصحافة والفيسبوك ووسائل التواصل الاجتماعي. جمعية ضد المهاجرين، اعتقد هم في النرويج، شافوا اتوبيس فاضي معدي، فاخذوا واحد صورة للاتوبيس، فلقوا كلهم ان شوية نسوان منقبات لابسين البرقع اللي هو بتاع النقاب. قالوا شوفهم كلهم مرقبات، دول كلهم ارهابيين مش ارهابيين. بعدين الناس بصوا كده معانا في الصورة، تدققوا في الصورة تلاقي انها الكراسي فاضية، كراسي عالية. الله، فهل يا ترى الكراسي دي الاتوبيس بقى اتوبيس شرعي يعني زي بتوع الجهاديين وخلت الكراسي منقبه، ولا هم بيسموهم انفيزبل بوركا، يعني بيسموهم المختفيات زي الانفيزبل مان، يعني الراجل الخفي بتاع هوليوود لا تحول الى مجاهد، وتبقى هم حور العين اللي هيقابلوه في الجنه. You see the story on the I mean, it's actually funny in a way, but also it is shows is it Islamophobia because that's something you come so close, or is it people are too nervous?
I think there's a combination of ignorance, and fear.
Yes.
And there have been Islamophobic incidents in London and elsewhere where people wearing burqas or even just hijabs have been subjected to abuse.
Yeah.
And I think there is a generalised lack of knowledge. But at the same time, I think people are worried because there have been incidents where people wearing burqas have been involved in attempting to escape from prisons or...
what was actually happening in places like Egypt and Pakistan, places like this.
And also some terrorist attacks. But I think generally it's a sign of some pretty stupid people on Facebook, you know, to think that a seat in a bus is a human being. I mean, really.
I think I was just saying in Arabic, there's actually a saying in Egypt, which is, if you keep thinking about ghosts and ghouls and all, they're going to find one in every corner.
That's true.
Yes. But you're one of the people doing very, very good work in your constituency on this subject of integration rather than isolation. And I think but in general, if you go outside London, you find a bit of cultural ghettos. People are not really...
But we have to work at it because, I mean, in my constituency, I've got really good interfaith dialogue, and the local council and others work very hard to build good relations between all the communities, and the schools do as well. But we've had one of the extremists who was involved in the terrorist attack at Borough Market was linked to my constituency. The man in prison, Amjad Chowdhury, was living...
He was making a lot of noise.
He was living in my constituency for more than 10 years. And recruiting, and his associates involved in extremist actions, including one of these guys who's just been sentenced in the trial that's just taken place in Birmingham. And so, frankly, the extremists operate and they try and radicalise people, even in places where we've got good community relations. So we have to work on it, and the communities have to support the police and the intelligence services and deal with these bad people and get them out of circulation.
Well, at least people South Africa are very lucky to have an able and veteran and experienced MP like Mike Gape. They were so lucky to have him here. Thank you very, very much, Michael, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all what we have today, and we say goodbye and see you next week. إلى اللقاء في الأسبوع القادم.